All of you are welcome to the group. If this video is your first time on the channel, I hope you decide to join by the end. From a legal point of view, there have been some very big changes going on in this space right now. China turning all the way around was one of the biggest moves we just saw. It's a huge deal. It's important to talk about this because China speeds up what the US does next. We'll talk about that in a moment, but first, I want to talk about some big legal changes happening in the US right now. Grayscale's plan for an Ethereum staking ETF was the first thing the SEC looked at. If you remember, staking was a big no-no when the SEC was in charge. You might not be able to offer any betting at all. That was an offer of security. Here's what we heard from the last SEC. They are now going over this again. I also think this is a very, very interesting news because if it goes through, the US is about to see some very, very big changes. A lot of these exchanges and big players in the space are going to start giving staking services. Guys, what we're seeing here is a big, totally different change from the old SEC to this new one. This is a big one. If this is fully accepted, it means that a lot of big things that the US market has been missing out on can happen. But besides this, we got another big news story. The enforcement section of the SEC gov rollback another rule. The study into DeFi exchange Uniswap is now over. Guys, the next big thing has to be the wave case, right? It has to be the wave case. That comes next. But what's really cool is that DeFi is no longer limited in any way. Now, DeFi can be used in the US. The SEC made a huge A1 move here, since we should never have had a problem with the DeFi side. No one should have touched it. In April, the SEC sent out a Wells warning saying, among other things, that Uniswap Labs was an unregistered broker that worked on an exchange and sold an unregistered security. The investigation into that matter was finally over yesterday, and the SEC is not taking any further action. We've always known that the technology we build is legal and our work is historical, and this is a big win for the DeFi space. Also, I really couldn't have said it better because the SEC's goal was to bring down DeFi. I said this a lot of times. What made them want to go after DeFi? That's because they can't do anything about it. Guys, if we think about DeFi yield, I can go get yield creation of 5% or more. That doesn't happen in TradFi at all. We haven't heard of anything like what DeFi has to offer or the money-making opportunities in this space in TradFi in decades. The big players are scared of this. The old SEC was mostly just a bodyguard for the big financial players who had monopolies. And what I really mean is that you have a group that works like the mafia, which is made up of bankers, right? In this case, they sent their troops, the SEC, to go after a space that was taking money, demand, and even market share away from the TradFi space. This is true because it goes all the way up to the FDIC and the Fed. This is phase 2 of Operation Choke Point. We've talked about this. I'm really looking forward to this big move, though, and just in the past month, these are the SEC cases that have been dropped. In order, Uniswap is the best. Other good ones are Coinbase, Robinhood, Binance, and OpenSea. That's 5 cases dropped in 1 month, guys. Now, they're also recognizing that Ethereum is being staked around the ETF. Also, all the ETFs out there, like XRP, ADA, and Solana, are now known about. I'd like to see that Ripple case go away, though. Some of these are stops, some are, end marks, and some are shuts. But at the end of the day, I want that case against Ripple to be over. Why did it take so long? We want that case to be over with. And after that, we can say for sure that this SEC's view on crypto is very different from the last one. And now we're seeing some of the biggest steps taken to make crypto grow in the US and for the biggest players like Ripple to become the US's biggest success story. For the same reason that Uniswap says we are not only following the law, but also the course of history. This technology will run almost everything we know for the next 50 to 100 years or more. Now let's talk about China, which was the big new. China's Supreme Court and other judicial leaders got together to talk about how to handle law cases involving crypto. Things are getting ready in China. This is very, very positive because if China starts to handle these crypto cases in a good way, the SEC in the US and every other court case we know of, including the Ripple case, will be handled very differently because of what China does. This is something I've said many times. It's important to pay attention to what the BRICS do, and China is clearly one of them because we need to work against these countries. Take a look back at the last few years. To figure out how to use digital assets, the BRICS have been building out payment systems for digital assets and totally different settlement systems as well. Also, guess what? We have to remember that it put a lot of pressure on the US to change its whole goals. That's why the new boss isn't taking his time. They are aware that they need to catch up. Because of this, I do believe that things are becoming more interesting as China thinks about how to handle these crypto cases. Also, let's go over here because we heard something at the beginning of February. The US wants clear rules for digital assets so that fintech and digital assets can be seen as leaders in innovation in the US. along with what we're seeing from the SEC and what we're seeing from China right now. A lot of new laws and rules are going to make this space very exciting. Look at this. That doesn't change the fact that the SEC has been going after crypto for 4 years now. So the goal of law is to make sure that the SEC and the CFTC know exactly what they need to do to protect investors, promote innovation, and get businesses to use blockchain. That's what we are going to do. Clear regulations are going to be passed. And I was so happy that David Sachs, who works for President Trump, my friend Tim Scott, who is chairman of the Banking Committee, G.T. Thompson, who is chairman of the House Ad Committee, and John Bozeman, who is chairman of the Senate Ad Committee, all got together yesterday to talk about our plans to make it easier for regulators to understand digital assets in the U.S. so that fintech and digital assets can be a leading area of innovation and technological progress. Instead of what Gary Gensler left us with, where people were leaving the U.S. to work on blockchain projects in London, the EU, and the Middle East, they should be staying here in the U.S. That's not the right way to do things, and making rules by enforcing them is not a good idea. To make new rules, we should ask them to use the Federal Register, which is an open process. Gary Gensler did not do this. And to work with Congress to make sure that creators get clear rules all the way through the capital formation process. Yeah, it's pretty clear that the US is about to go through a big change. The best part is that we've been seeing a lot of big headline stories support all of these great cases that are now being dropped. But that last big one is still not here, right? We're still waiting for that one last big item, that holy prize that, Ripple, the Ripple case is over. I think we'll get there because, crypto just got a big boost in the US at the beginning of the month. And if we look at the bottom of that list, we see that Ripple's Brad Garlinghouse and Stuart Adorati are all singing its praises after years of regulatory battles. Yes, here are some big news updates for the whole month of February about how we're going to get clear and how the space is going to change. The SEC's actions have supported this. So there are clear steps being taken that support the idea that the crypto space in the US is now being backed. We can now see invention, or a better phrase, the green light. And just in the past week, there have been some big changes in Congress and crypto. The Senate and the House are back. And even though politics are crazy right now, crypto law is still very important. This week, the Senate held meetings on market structure. The SEC kept us up to date on litigation, and early work began on stablecoin bills. This week, both houses of Congress are focusing on the budget because there could be a shutdown in the middle of March. The drama is likely to keep going, which could slow down the progress of bills like Senator Ted Cruz's and Mike Carey's to get rid of the IRS DeFi broker rule. I do believe that this will be done very soon, given how close Republicans are to winning the House. This budget drama is neither new nor surprising. However, their bill will likely be the first crypto vote this Congress. There are a lot of people who want to get to that bill as soon as the drama dies down. For example, we have that big update about the DeFi killing broker rule, which is the same rule that Uniswap was fighting against, with the idea of an unregistered broker. And I say this again, I think that the DeFi killing dealer rule will soon be history if this case is dropped. That seems like it will be gone. But while we wait for the IRS broker's CRA banking, GOP has a busy week. The first hearing on regulatory frameworks was on Wednesday, and it's already Thursday, and different nominees are being moved forward. There's still no word on Paul Atkins' approval, but public statements suggest that it will happen soon. Jonathan Jackham is one of the witnesses at the Senate meeting. By the way, we have a lot of players in this space, including Kraken FX, Lightspark, and even a newer crypto lawyer. A lot of what is being talked about will be the same as at the House meeting 2 weeks ago: the structure of the market, how agencies should work together, and how quickly Congress needs to pass a framework. The other important thing that happened in the Senate is, of course, the stablecoin